Hi there guys, welcome back to the channel. If it's already Christmas by the time this video comes out, I wish all of you a Merry Christmas. And today we're gonna talk about a little product by Huma-Air, especially made for the headgun Leshiy 2. Now we all know Huma-Air as the market leader in accuracy when it comes to air regulators. They make regulators for various amount of rifles on the market to make them more reliable, to make them more accurate, to make them more consistent. You name it, Huma-Air is your company when you want to change out your regulator on your airgun. Now, on the headgun Leshiy 2, it's not so much about making it more consistent because the regulator in the headgun Leshiy 2 is actually a very good regulator, but I've read on forums and I've seen some comments of people that the regulator is frequently failing due to an O-ring blowing out and stuff like this. So Huma-Air came out with a solution, and it's a more robust version of the original regulator in your Leshiy 2, and they call it the Raptor Regulator. Really robust regulator to be replaced with your headgun Leshiy 2, a one-on-one replacement. So this video I'm going to walk you through how to install it and just show you how easy it is to one-on-one replace your original regulator in your Leshiy 2 with the Huma-Air Raptor Regulator. So let's get started. So alright, here we are at the tabletop view, and the first thing we're going to do is to degas the complete system, of course. So we're going to do this by opening up the bleed screw here at the front, just like this, and let it bleed out. And so once the system is completely out of air, we can always verify at the back to make sure it reads 0. The regulator also says 0, and there is still a little bit of air coming out, but that shouldn't be any problem. First thing I'm going to do is remove my regulator gauge, and the rest of the air will bleed out, of course. With the regulator gauge gone, I can simply unscrew that front part. And with any headgun, it is so well engineered that everything fits nicely, and it's very robust, as you can see, like so. This part you can put to the side for a second, and the next thing we can remove is our front plug, I think they call it, or the front head. That's the whole valving system that makes the magazine cycle and stuff. Simply unscrew it, just like this, and also put this safely to the side. And so we are left with the Reaper housing, I believe it calls. And that's their regulator housing that houses their regulator and the opening for the regulator gauge. The first thing we will do is maybe remove that filter you see right there, 22mm. Simply undo it, small nudge, and put that filter to the side, and you will see in just a second why. Next thing we'll do is disassemble the complete gauge, and for this you have two options. One is you could use some needle nose pliers, put them into those holes that you see, and start twisting it just like this. But headgun also has a dedicated tool for this, which is a little bit safer because it has 4 pins instead of just 2 from the needle nose pliers. And go ahead, remove the top cap just like this. Let me take it off for a second, like so. And inside we are greeted with the piston and the Belleville washers. Now you can use the needle nose pliers to gently wiggle it out just like this, and as you can see we have all the Belleville washers, and the O-ring you see right there, that O-ring that once failed on me and dumping all the pressure out of regulators. So I believe that's the problem some people are having with the original regulator, and therefore Huma has created their Raptor Regulator. Now we're going to remove the housing you have in the middle. Same thing at the bottom, you have the 4 holes that correspond with those 4 pins. You could use the needle nose pliers, but if you want to have a good or better grip on it, you can better use a tool just like this. Find the 4 holes. Sometimes the copper part is glued in, and it is quite strong by me, as it seems. Let me readjust to another hole. I think I will be needing all my force to do this. and it broke loose. So probably there was some Loctite in the threads to break it free, and therefore it's pretty easy to do with a tool like this. Pretty easy. You need still a little bit of force. If you would do it with some needle nose pliers, you might risk damaging the inside, and that's not what you're looking for. As you can see, there was some Loctite in those threads, preventing it from coming out very easily. Another O-ring at the bottom that might or could fail with this regulator. So just to keep everything together, I'll put this back inside, making sure the pin fits in that hole right there. Screwing the cap back on so I'm not losing any of those Belleville washers. Like this, putting it to the side. Once the whole cup is out, or that brass cup, we still need to remove that part there completely in the bottom. It's a small ball bearing on a spring that has to come out, and the easiest way is to do it through there with some compressed air, or with a compressor you might choose, which is your favorite tool to remove it, and that's why we removed that brass filter, to have access to that little hole right there. So you should put in your thread like this, and it should come out just like this. And you have to be careful. There is that small ball bearing that sticks into the grease, of course. Just making sure I'm not losing it, because who knows, I might later on go back to the original regulator as a spare part or something. Right. Taking a small empty bag, putting those tiny parts inside, making sure not losing it. Putting the regulator, the original one, together with it, so all my parts stay well organized. And the next thing we gotta do is to clean all the surfaces inside, make sure everything is free from debris. There is no leftovers of that glue that was used to stick in the original regulator. So I'm using some isopropyl alcohol. Wiping down the whole inside, completely down in the hole, make sure everything is nice and clean. And because isopropyl alcohol is a little bit flammable, let's blow it out. Just like this, making sure everything is nice and clean. And then we can have a look at the Huma-Air Raptor Regulator. So what you get in your bag is a small card with a QR code for some instructions, but of course you can also use my video, of course. You have the regulator itself, and you get a small plastic bag with a nozzle and two spare white discs. There is also another white disc inside there, so you can have two spare ones if your regulator maybe is not 100% functioning well anymore. You can always swap out that white little disc and it should be brand new as well. So the first thing we're gonna do is to install that small little nozzle you have there. It's a tiny part, of course. Make sure we're not losing the other parts. And as you can see, the nozzle has two sides. One side has like an X inside engraved into it, and one has a small raised lip with a small dimple in the middle that will meet up with that white disc at the bottom of your regulator. So this part has to go down inside the hole you see right there. So before we put it, you can see there is a small O-ring on it. I'm using some O-ring lube. This is a special lube, low viscosity from Huma-Air itself. So this should be the perfect solution for it. Always make sure you use the correct lube. And I found the easiest way to put it in is to be careful. Just line it up with the hole you have there at the bottom. Then just take your finger, make sure you line it up, and what you want to hear is a small click, just like this, pushing it all the way down into the bottom right there. That's the first step. Then we have the regulator itself, and before we go ahead and to install it, we have to separate the black cup from the silver one, and we can just do this by unscrewing it. And the way you want to unscrew it is actually upside down, and you will see in a minute just why. There are quite a lot of threads on that silver part, which is good because the silver part actually is your adjustment, and we will have a look at this later on in the video. Just like this, and as you can see, there is this white disc that you have two spare ones from, and then we are left with a cup like this. Same thing here, there's an O-ring at the bottom. Take a little bit of our lube. Then put it inside. I always go quarter of a turn back, so I make sure the threads start nicely, and then without any resistance I'm screwing it in. Once you can't go any further with your fingers, you can use a coin or something just like this to pinch it up. Doesn't have to be very tight, just to pinch it up is good. Of course, I like to align a lot of stuff, so by coincidence it lines up, which is pretty cool. Then you're going to take this part, we're going to turn everything around, put that part inside, find the threads and start screwing it in. Again, a lot of threads. Go in as far as you can with your fingers before turning it around. This way you make sure that white little disc stays in place, and you can feel with your fingers once it goes inside the small opening where that disc has to sit. And at this point I think we can turn it around just like this. I can't go any further with my fingers, and probably when we put air inside, the regulator will read 0. And that's just about it, and we're almost done with installing that regulator. Let's quickly replace our dust cover or our filter. Pinch it up with a 22mm. Doesn't have to be tight, it's just there to prevent any dust or major troubles getting into your regulator. Then we can take our back part, and before we put the back part in, let's inspect our O-rings quickly. And one thing I straightly see on this O-ring, I can see this one had a little bit of a rough life, so preventing it from troubles, I will be replacing it. I have an O-ring replacement kit right here, so let's quickly find the O-ring that I need. These ones seem to be too big. I think it will be this one right here. The other ones can go back into the bag. Seems to be, it's a 25x3, exactly the O-ring that I'm looking for. This one can actually go to the garbage because probably it won't be any use anymore. Again, let's lubricate it just a little bit so the lifespan gets a little bit longer and it fits nicely inside. Put it over just like this. Perfect. At this point, again, I like to put a little bit of lubrication. A lot of people forget it, but a little bit of lubrication goes a long way and prevents a lot of trouble, especially when you're maneuvering an O-ring through the threads like you see here to get to that mating surface right there. Gently push it in, make sure counterclockwise till you find the threads and screw it in. You shouldn't feel any resistance, and screwing in should be able to go pretty smooth, just like this. Then we take our front plug, inspecting the O-ring at the front. Seems to be in very good condition. I see a small aluminum speck or something. Let's remove this. Any small piece of debris between the O-ring and the mating surface can cause leakage, of course. Same here, a little bit of lube goes a long way. Just like this. And then we can screw this in to the front part, gently push the O-ring through, counterclockwise till you find the threads, and screw it in. Now, as you can see, the question I get asked a lot is to align all these parts with the gauge, and the front plug. I made a special video separate on this, how to align everything just like you want it. But in this video, I will go just like this. You can screw them out about half a turn to one turn. Let's put in my regulator gauge quickly. Make sure, as you can see, I'm just putting it in with my fingers. I'm not using any wrenches. And then the front plug can also go half a turn back out. Make sure we align everything properly. This can go down, and then the front part can go in just a little bit more. Like so, more or less. Perfect. Open up the fill port. And at this point we can take our air source, close the bleed screw, open it up. And here I have my easy, very useful tool. Made a video about that as well. Fill it up with air. For some of you who might want to know, I fold my neoprene cover double-sided, so it just comes near to that regulator gauge. And as you can see, the regulator gauge is still reading 0. So let's adjust that new Raptor Regulator by Huma-Air. For this, you can use a 17mm spanner, and by going counterclockwise, I don't know if you can hear the hiss, still reading 0. Reading about 42 bar, so let's adjust it to 120, maybe 125, 74, 99. I can still hear it filling up that plenum. 111. Maybe I'll go to 115. I know at 115, with some 44 grains in 30 caliber, it was pretty accurate as well, and it gives me a decent shot count with that bottle as well. So guys, that's just how easy it is to replace your original regulator with the Raptor Regulator by Huma-Air. And now you can enjoy a little bit more reliable and robust regulator by Huma. Just a few basic tools and a little bit of time and you're good to go. By now, if it's already Christmas and New Year, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. As always, I thank you for watching these videos so we can grow this channel. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you back in the next one. Bye.